this conference is about the wise city. Did you ever heard about the wise city part?
No, it's.
No?
I'm really learning about. I know what wise is.
We have Anna. She's going to tell us all about the wise city.
I know what wise is. I'm not sure if I'm wise or if we are wise, but I know what a city is. I have moderated over the last years, quite many events that were called Smart City. And I have to admit, also with these events, sometimes I wasn't sure in the end what it meant, Smart City. We talked about it, but what does it mean?
Yeah, should there be a difference between a smart city and a wise city? Because if you enter this city hall, you see in big letters, this smart city. And that's what my association with Eindhoven. Smart, high-tech, hard, economic. And this wise city is very soft and sensible, magical, and that sort of thing. So
yeah, maybe it's interesting to
Anne is going to tell us everything.
To tell shortly about like our experience this morning. We both came by train.
Yeah.
And there
couldn't get a bike.
Yeah, in the Netherlands there's this great concept of having your train card and getting a bike.
Yeah.
And we both went to the city, like coming with our card, saying we would like to take a bike, but no bikes.
Yeah, Dutch design week.
And I've heard that it's like this one time a year that we have the smart technology. It was called Smart.
Yeah.
But we couldn't come here.
It's not.
You took a taxi and I walked.
Yeah. I walked back and you do the taxi back.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not such a smart city. They didn't prepare for the Dutch Design Week. They need 500 bikes more. That's for next year. Yeah.
Okay. Educational Forum today, this afternoon.
Yeah, but first maybe we should talk about this ISOCARP conference, because you were in Maastricht and talk about the new economy and old borders.
Yes.
And this whole idea of these pre-conferences for the ISOCARP conference was to bring in messages to the big forum in Rotterdam. Where's Kees? He's making photographs. First, Kees Donkers. This is one of his last efforts to change the world here in Eindhoven. But Kees, you were at the big ISOCARP conference. Please tell us, did you hear anything about a pre-conference on airport planning in Schiphol, or a pre-conference in Maastricht about new economy? What did you hear about it?
Yeah, we even organized it because there were 12 cities participating in this. Because
even outside the Dutch.
Yeah, Antwerp, Brussels,
Dortmund. Yeah.
No, the idea was first to come together here as a prelude in Eindhoven. So all the young planners were here, and then we decided to split for 2 days workshop in those cities. So Schiphol had one workshop for 2 days.
I did Schiphol.
Okay, Maastricht had 2, and we also had one in Hackathon.
Okay.
So typical.
And the results of all these pre-conferences were brought on the big venue in Rotterdam.
Yeah, our vice mayor went there on Wednesday. We had a mayor summit, so Abu Talib was inviting all the mayors from all those cities, and they first represented all the results, like pitches, like we do today, and then they discussed the outcome of it together. So 12 mayors.
Okay. Well, message we brought to the podium I wasn't there in Rotterdam. I had other things to do. But one of the things that you could relate to this education forum is that I made a proposal for Schiphol to have the new university in Amsterdam, which is in a museum in the middle of the city now, the Advanced Metropolitan Solutions (AMS) University. To bring that university to the airport, because in the new knowledge economy you need an airport is a knowledge hub, and it's not only an air hub but a knowledge hub. So you have to bring schools and universities in the airport. Maybe an issue will be raised by Pavel. And what about the Maastricht? What about your message for the ISOCARP conference? What did you bring to it?
Yeah, maybe one short question. Does everybody know what ISOCARP is? Because we talk about it, you understand?
Oh, I thought it was in the introduction text.
Just checking. So there is this international organization of urban planners and designers, and they come together once a year. And this year it's in Rotterdam. They have their 50th anniversary. It was taking place in Rotterdam.
Yeah.
Past few days, and at the beginning of the week there were like 10 satellite conferences.
We talk about the context of what we are doing here today. One context is ISOCARP conference and the other is Dutch Design Week. But what about your experience in
it was
Maastricht?
Interesting. So in Maastricht there was an event thinking about how do the city of Aachen, of Liège and Maastricht work together. 3 cities from
Germany,
three different countries. Yes.
Germany, Belgium, Holland. Yeah.
Yeah, and for example, apparently the number of people who work daily, who cross the border daily for their job, this amount is shrinking. And on the other hand, these 3 different cities, they see that there is a big opportunity economically, but also like socially and culturally to collaborate. And these 3 cities try to win the bid for the new cultural capital in the Netherlands, from the Netherlands, but it was Leeuwarden from the north to won, and now they are looking for what can we do with this energy that we anyway created by working together on this bid. And one of the things that they wanted to present also in Rotterdam, I also wasn't there myself, but what I heard is that planners, urban designers, social designers, people that are very good and learning to work with a more holistic approach. So try to step beyond your own profession, try to learn what other people do, what drives them, and how you can work together. And for their case, it's very clear that they have to kind of overcome cultural borders, 3 different countries, 3 different languages.
Widening the idea of thinking and doing and learning.
Yeah, and at the same time, sustaining yourself and making business.
Who attended this conference, the ISOCARP conference? You did? Okay, because I thought the theme was let's reinvent planning or something like that. Let's reinvent planning. What should be reinvented? Did you hear anything about this issue?
Yeah, I wrote.
I
read.
You made some notes.
Kind of synthesis on that. If it comes to Eindhoven, at least. But I guess it does also count for the other workshops, I guess. So I could give you a super small impression about what we came up with together. Let's see. So I guess young planners are now seen as more and more becoming community facilitators through social and community engagement. So it's becoming urban programming rather than urban planning. We're becoming storytellers, free space makers, to create starting points, and this we now call enlightening tactics. And through that, inspired by this city, we can bring some light. So it seems like it's developing into an exciting profession.
Okay, Generation X and I guess. Let's go to the baby boomers on the other side. But because Frans, you were at ISOCARP too, and what's your impression? How about reinventing planning?
My impression was that they had quite a lot of optimism about everything happening from the bottom up. People organizing themselves. When you think about the Stripe area here in Eindhoven, everybody thinks the new surroundings here are bottom up organized. No, they are organized just from top down. Everybody is organizing a new type of city here, a knowledge city. And so I was a little bit puzzled. I don't believe that the invisible hand of somebody, money or the government, is still needed to organize creative cities or modern cities. So
maybe we should need a combination of institutional and cooperative urbanism, because you said Stripe S, if you look at it, it looked as if it's the effect of cooperative urbanism, but it's top down and institutional. What was your enlightenment, Marian, in the ISOCARP conference?
Actually, it was about a statement made about Schiphol. What you saw was that analyzed was the relationship between Schiphol and the city of Amsterdam, and the last stage is that it's a parasite on the city. But the wonderful thing was the statement that it should be a symbiotic relationship, and actually that's exactly what we are doing within this city and within all disciplines, and also within the top-down and bottom-up, what we are creating is egalitarian systems, and in a way it's Hegel. You know, you have the these, antithese, and you see that a lot in politics, but that's the end stage. And now we should look for the synthesis and how it was. And I agree that the planners can play a wonderful role in bringing joining the different aspects that we all crave for together, because that is really what design is about, and that is the reason that it's so apt that this is taking place at the Design Week. In the end, it's seeing that people are different, there are different things that are of importance, and in a way you have to bring it together in a creative, co-creative process. And the other thing is, nobody can stand outside the process. So it's also a moral thing. You are part of it, you are part of society, whether you are a fugitive or not, you are part of society and you have your role to play. Just play it.
Thank you. I'm very glad to hear this clear message from the Schiphol airport, because I did a good work there, I guess. Because I made a plea more on a concrete level to make a joint planning team for the Schiphol airport area and for Amsterdam. Maybe that's that idea of the symbiotic relationship between Amsterdam and Schiphol, you can transform it to Eindhoven and Eindhoven airport. Yeah.
Well, actually, that is exactly what we are trying to do now.
Okay. I'll talk to you more in detail about the results of this pre-conference.
Yeah, and that's also what we're going to do this afternoon. We have many people, many views that we're going to share with each other and discuss. We talk about planning, we talk about entrepreneurship, and also about education. And I wrote a few questions down, and we're going to see if we can find answers to these questions. And many of the speakers will also talk about it. Like, how does education change? You hear this question a lot, but how does it change fundamentally? Can we talk about it, and can we identify these changes? What will be who of you is a teacher here? Okay. One of the questions is, how does the role of the teacher change? Is this idea true that in the future we will take all our knowledge from internet? We don't need teachers anymore. We teach ourselves. Is that the future of education? I'm curious. We will all come and ask you.
Yeah. The teachers are for Bildung, for personal development.
Yeah. Maybe not anymore for knowledge exchange. But how does this knowledge exchange then work? Are we still able to read books? Who of you still reads books? Who says I am beyond reading books? I read tweets.
Nobody dares.
Nobody dares, okay. Who says I would like to have more time to read books? Okay, so all the people who read books, the biggest amount of them also says I need more time. Yeah, me too. I also want more time. And then we will also come to this concept, which is maybe not directly related to education, but it plays a part of it. Like, what do we learn about this idea of wise city versus smart city? Is it just an exchange of concepts, because after a few years we need new names for conferences? Yeah. Or is there a fundamental change?
But I think smart city is not so a sustainable concept, I guess. So we're a bit in the need of a concept for the city which can sustain for a longer time than the smart city. But I think smart city is a very fashionable thing, and maybe we should talk about there's a national. They're making a national manifesto on the quality of space in the Netherlands. Jaar van de ruimte in Dutch terms, and it's about what sort of quality and what sort of planning do we need and in the next decades. And it seems that there are big divides between two sides. The one side of the institutional planning and the other side of the cooperative urbanism. Frans already said yeah, the microphone. They need each other. It's somewhere the twain shall meet. There's another dichotomy between, on the one side, the economic approach, and on the other side, the more social innovation approach. Well, you could say that economic approach needs innovation, while social innovation is also about economics. So there's a challenge to bridge this divides which we see in the whole debate on this Jaar van de Ruimte, this national manifesto on the quality of space. But I think that's one of our ways to explore this afternoon, to bring these opponent approaches a bit nearer to each other. And maybe that's very wise, I guess. Yeah.
Shall we start?
Yeah.
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 Are you going to hit that thing again, or?
No.
No. Okay, we just start. Very good.
I'll ask Pavel to have his keynote, because you're a keynote. Maybe you should introduce yourself first, Pavel. You can use that microphone.
Can I borrow one of the mics?
Oh, okay.
Oh, thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
thought this microphone was good. Yeah, okay.
We had a discussion right before this event that we become too much of a verbal culture where we only talk. We should move more. We should use our senses. And I was thinking I made the wrong presentation. I should have made a dance.
Okay.
To express everything.
Well,
but now, well, I will afterwards.
Okay.
In the integration part.
Yeah. Actually, at the ISOCARP, I saw who did that. I saw a Twitter message about the end of the ISOCARP conference. The next conference will be in Durban. You were there, and all the guys from Durban, they danced in Rotterdam, and the Dutch did a bit. So we could dance in the end.
Yes,
also.
we will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
There will be a party afterwards.
Okay, so the floor is yours.
So thank you very much. So my name is Pavel Luksha. I come from Russia, from Moscow, but at the moment I work not only in Russia, but around the world, and I will present the results of the project which is called Global Education Futures. And my work is the work about the future of education, and the way we try to understand and bring forward the future of education is by organizing collaborative, collective processes where people together think and kind of build visions about the future of education, and then design projects which actually bring this future into reality. And we started this process about 7 years ago, first in Russia. It was a movement of educational innovators that tried to understand where the situation is going. And we were gradually scaling up. We were getting the attention of government agencies and large foundations in Russia. And at the moment, we lead a number of important national projects in Russia. And so when we started doing that, we realized a lot of questions lie not within our country, but they actually lie on a global level. So we have to come to people across the world and ask them where they think the future of education is, where the frontier lies, where the situation is going. So we challenge ourselves to understand the frontier perspective, where OECD countries are moving, where Europe is going, where United States is going, or Japan, or China. And it is, again, important to do it collaboratively, to see not singular perspectives, but multiple perspectives. And to understand where the situation is going, we have to bring in real leaders, people who do these frontier projects, and ask them to present their perspective. So we did that. We did a number of sessions across the world, in Russia, in Europe, in Brazil, in Silicon Valley. There's going to be one in Singapore. And well, many people there, and they were really diverse positions, but all of them are people that are really shaping education. So people, for instance, that coordinate OECD testing mechanisms that now shape the school education, like PISA tests, or people that develop international standards for skills development, like World Skills International Movement. And Case was part of our dialogue, and it was really fruitful, the dialogue on the future of education in the city. So how do we understand what the future of education can be? We first of all have to ask ourselves what the world is going to look like. So there are things called trends, the processes that are relatively robust. Some of them are technological, some of them are social, demographic, and we can see what these trends are shaping. And then we can ask, how does this affect the world of jobs, and how does it affect the way we live our lives? And once we understand that, we know what skills and knowledge we should get to be successful, to be sustainable, to live fruitful and healthy life, and so on. So how do we survive and prosper in the world? And then the last question is, if we know what these skills and knowledge are, how do we teach them? How do we acquire them? So this is about education. This is about educational models. Because as I'm going to show you, there is a fundamental conflict between the skills of the future we need and the existing educational systems. So first of all, one thing we know for sure, that we live in an increasingly complex world, and the change is accelerating. So these are some of the famous graphs in the technology, but not only in technology this is happening, this is also happening in the society. The one graph shows how fast major new innovations are being adopted. Like, for instance, if we look at electricity, it took over 50 years to get to a quarter of population in developed countries. If we talk about internet, it only took 7 years, and smartphones probably like 4 years. And at the same time, important innovations come closer every year. We see more and more of these inventions coming closer to the society. So we are in this exponential situation. And what are the critical trends in this exponential situation? And the first of them is, probably one of the key drivers, is digitalization. And of course, I'm not going to lecture you about futurology. It's not to do that, and I believe that you know many of these trends. I just want to highlight some things. One of these things is that digitalization is happening very intensively. And if you compare how you lived your life 10 years ago, how do you live it now, it's really more and more of the digital practices are coming into our lives. And there will be increasingly more data. There will be, everyone is already connected, will be even more connected, will be even more mobile, will be on the internet 24 hours and so on, which means that this will be a major challenge for our minds, because we lived evolved in an analog world. Now we come into the digital world, and it starts to change our living practices, the way we live our lives, basically. There is a famous notion of no-socializing, which means the very familiar behavior when people come to the bar and they take out their smartphones and they go into their smartphone and don't talk to each other. They come, like, they're being together, but everybody is online in a social network. So this is one of the examples. This is just a very recent one that 2 or 3 years ago it started to be widespread. But it shows some indicators how we try to balance our usual way of analog world with the digital world. We will have to learn that. Another important trend is that we are in the process of rebuilding industries. There are discussions of the wave of innovation coming. Yes, please. I'm sorry. Thank you. The wave of innovation coming to the industry. Germany speaks about Industry 4.0, which is the notion of cyber-physical system, completely autonomous plants able to self-adapt themselves, rebuild themselves, adjust themselves when they need to start producing new types of things. And this means ultimately that with the wave of innovation that automate our jobs, we have a situation that in just 10 or 15 or 20 years from now, the significant share of existing jobs may become obsolete. The good example, for instance, is call centers, which used to be a huge sector for some of the emerging economies like India, and they started to disappear just overnight because of the development of artificial intelligence and voice recognition software, which started to destroy jobs. It becomes cheaper to install this software than to keep large call centers. And like virtually hundreds of thousands of people are losing jobs right now in India because of this single innovation. And we can think of many more. So this is a big challenge because up to 70% of the jobs in existing economy may become obsolete. But that's not the only challenge, because the challenge is that how do we find new space where people are going to perform their work? What will they do? What will be the focus of their work if robots take some of the routine work? Because obviously we are not, historically, we are not about doing routine things. We're doing about connecting to each other. We are about doing creative things. So maybe it's a good opportunity that we really come back to ourselves as humans and start doing more humane things with each other and toward each other. Greening, obviously, another important trend, and here in Holland this may be trivial to speak about it, but one thing I wanted to highlight, that it's not only about bringing more sustainable practices. It's about an opportunity to rebuild our relationship with nature significantly. Because if we think about the way we live in cities right now, and what is a city in relationship to the biosphere, it is actually a consumer of resources, of everything, and what it puts out is a garbage, is a waste. So the question is, can we turn cities into something that can produce nature? And in fact we could, because if we look at rural life, villages used to be more or less natural part of the biosphere. We could rebuild cities to act like that. We could rebuild cities to clean water, to clean air, to reprocess waste, which, like, there, you know about the story about zero waste programs, obviously, but we could talk about a positive benefit for the nature. And what it requires new biotech, which can, building of artificial ecosystems, which can process, for instance, water treatment and clean water for the environment. So it's a really huge opportunity, and we have to do this work, and it's a big challenge how to rebuild it, and most important, how to build new habits, and not only habits of acting, but also habits of thinking that will keep this as a sustainable situation for our civilization. And last trend I have to mention is that obviously these technological changes are accompanied by social changes. And one thing is that we will have to find spaces of doing things that robots cannot do and machines cannot do. And it's all about human touch, it's about creativity. Not only creative sector, but also services to each other. Everything that is more authentic, everything that has this empathic dimension and so on. So things in education, in entertainment, in wellness and healthcare are big sectors that are going to thrive. Another important thing, obviously, is that we're going to move into a situation that is more dynamic. There is this acronym VUCA, which means volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous. So these are environments we are entering into because the world is changing faster and faster. They become more fluid, and we have to adjust ourselves to be able to survive in those environments. Probably as a part of the solution, we have to remove some of the artificial borders set up by industrial civilization. Because who says that we should separate our work from our living, from play, from interaction with friends? Is it natural? Maybe not. So maybe we will have to find new ways of living which combine that, make working fun, make living with family fun, making it work, and so on. So we have to think about these combinations and the way we can organize new living and working spaces. And of course, as we come to the more sophisticated global challenges, and environmental change is one of these global challenges. We have to build structures that are able to process these global challenges. We are not there yet, and things such as United Nations are not doing their job well. And so the challenge is that we are coming to the complex society, and in a complex society we have to remember that things that used to work in the past will not work, so we have to constantly reinvent things. We need new systems of governance, which means more self-governance, and I liked a lot this idea about the new mode of urban planning, which means it's like a collective action. And again, we're coming to the complex society which becomes more fragile, so it will be responsibility of everyone to keep peace, to keep stability, to remove conflicts, to process them peacefully, so we will have to learn that. Which brings us, so these ideas about what the future of society is going to look like bring us to the idea of what skills we will need. And first and most important challenge is the digital challenge, which means we will have to live in more harmonious and more efficient way with the coming digital and smart reality. Omnipresent information and communication technologies, robotics, Internet of Things. They all require, of course, on one hand, how we manage them, like programming, but more important is that they put so much pressure on our mind, on our attention, that the critical skill is actually attention management. And people start to talk about mindfulness. And one thing we can definitely say now is that mindfulness becomes not simply a, let's say, new age thing, it becomes a critical ability of people to survive in the complex and information-intense environments. Because we need to know how to direct our attentions, what we attend to, what not, and so on. In addition to that, I spoke about the boost of the service sector, the human-centered service sector, which means that there are some critical skills to be able to create and perform these services. One of them is creativity, of course. Another one is the human dimension. So we have to know more about our emotions. We have to know about more how we connect with each other. So empathy, and maybe beyond, things like compassion, help us to be more attentive to others when we serve them. Thinking about this transformation of civilization due to automation and greening, obviously it creates a huge amount of urban jobs. So urbanism is obviously a growing area, and urban jobs will be increasingly important because we are going to rebuild our cities, not simply build new cities, but rebuild them from inside. Which means we need jobs around green cities, healthy cities, distributed and connected cities, smart cities, wise cities. We're going to speak what it might mean. And there is a list of jobs. I don't go deep here. There are many jobs, I would say. Education itself, if we rethink education, if we think that education is not simply about starting the life, launching ourselves into life, but really about something that accompanies us through our lives, through crises, through different changes we go through, lifelong learning. Which means it should include therapy, body and mind fitness, and so on, personal development. Then it may be seen as one of the really important and growing sectors, one of the probably key sectors of 21st century economy. And of course, design, coordination, maintenance of these complex technological environments will be there, and this will be really sophisticated engineering jobs. But the key thing that it will be only 5% of population that are going to do that. So we don't expect everybody to do that, and most people will move into new sectors. So now a question. Is educational system of the present able to provide the skills and knowledge that we need? And if we think that we can only teach skills by actually having the same quality as embedded in the skills, the answer is most probably no. For instance, We want everybody to be creative. But the design of industrial education systems is that people receive standard tasks and they have to do standard tasks. Of course it's changing, but I'm just emphasizing the difference. So probably standard learning environments are not best environments when you have only one class on creativity and the rest is standardized. Collaboration. In most schools, we are in the situation when people basically compete against each other. They receive these standard tasks and they have to perform best, like top 5%. You have to get there. It doesn't create the collaborative mode, because collaboration is the idea that there are complementary skills and that you need to move together. If we talk about lifelong learning, this is another important thing. People, when they come to school, for instance, they are in the environment where everything is set for them. They know what they're going to do, teachers tell them what to do, and so on. But where is learning itself? It doesn't happen that way. Learning happens through curiosity, it happens through self-exploration, it happens through mistakes that you need to make. And all of this was not encouraged in the industrial educational setup. And if we go this list, we'll see that all of these critical skills are not supported by the existing educational system. So this means that if we really want to get into the society that we talk about, and if we want to match this technological and social change with appropriate skills, then we need to reinvent education. And what the transition to lifelong learning means. It means that we're coming to the situation when we don't focus all of the education at the first, like, third or quarter of our life, but we spread it through our life. Which means, why would we have to do it, first of all? Because we cannot prepare for an increasingly complex world. We cannot learn all new skills that will guarantee us a job for life or success in different living circumstances. This is simply not possible. So education must be not about the start of life, it must be about all of life. Which means that it's not only about getting professional skills to success in life, but it's about living through life. And therefore, it's only you, the person who actually learn, who can be in control, in charge of this learning trajectory. It's not teachers, it's not parents, it's only you in the lifelong learning mode. So the way that educational ecosystems will probably look like encompass at least 4 dimensions. So at the heart of this is self-guided learners, people that are able to determine their own priorities and their scenarios, and that focus on skills of the future that make them successful not only in present, but strategically successful. And how they are supported, there are 4 dimensions. One is that, of course, schools and colleges will remain, but they will be accompanied by new formats, and I will speak about these formats shortly. Technology intense learning allows personalized education, and I will also mention about this. But in addition to that, you can learn a lot from the peers, from communities, from collectives. This is where face-to-face learning is going to happen. It will be very important. And finally, internet allows the development and thriving of global learning platforms that can spread knowledge globally from best owners of the knowledge to everyone. So speaking about global online learning platforms, they will be big. The ambition of some of these platforms is to reach 1 billion students by 2020, like edX, which is a project between Harvard University and MIT. Some of them will be probably built by existing players, and one of them, LinkedIn, is a network of professionals already invest in Lindo.com, which is one of these platforms. Don't think about this online learning as YouTube. It will be new environments, like augmented reality, for instance, will be used. It will be artificial intelligence that will assist the personalized learning. Most important, when people learn online, everything is recorded. So all of your preferences, all of your learning strategies are there. And they can be used in a thing called digital pedagogy, which actually allows very, very personalized learning for everyone who goes into these platforms. And in addition to that, you know, things like Apple Watch, which record our biometric data, they can be used in a biofeedback mode, connected to these platforms, which allows to control for body and mind state, which actually can show you that you're not concentrated enough, maybe you need a break, and so on. So it allows a lot of feedback. And therefore, these platforms can be much more adaptable than even existing school and university environments. Finally, they are not only about spreading knowledge from one person to another. They can be used for coordination of global action. For instance, if you think Greenpeace needs like a global action or worldwide fund, Wide Nature Fund, needs a global action on protection of environment, they can use such platforms to coordinate such actions. Coming to the city dimension, because city dimension will be the second important change. We have the situation where education moves out of schools and universities into cities. If we think about lifelong learning, it cannot be supported by schools and universities alone. It should be supported by multiple formats, like cities, civic centers, fitness clubs, parks, city zoos, and so on and so on. And communities in cities, different communities, territorial, professional, hobbyist communities, those around style of life, and so on, they all become venues of learning with shared interests, with real-life problems. For instance, one of the very important problems is about food. How do we get food into city? How do we cook food? How do we share food? And so a lot of learning can be done around that. And there are two projects I show. These are real projects. One is about environmental protection, where community is learning from each other how to protect water in their district. Some of this learning will be about instant formats, when people get together and do a public art performance, but at the same time public art becomes a learning venue. Some of them become a place where families connect with each other, because families now in the city are disconnected, and through learning there comes a family reintegration and families unification into communities. We need tools like city navigators, which shows us where the opportunities for learning are, and which connect personal learning interest to venues and create like personal navigation trajectories through the space in the city. We need tools that use augmented reality and convert different places in the city into learning labs. And over time, this can come into integral places, like we call them during the session evolutionary learning communities, which become hubs for learning, inquiry, design, and action, where you can combine family life, economy, entrepreneurship, spirituality, healthcare, ecology, food, different aspects of city living. So, do I have like 5 minutes more? Thank you. So, now the question is, I believe we are in a very interesting situation where we already see the future, but we are in a situation of, so to say, a chasm, a barrier that it's really hard to cross, because a lot has been invested in the existing systems, these hierarchical systems that are controlled by national governments, that focus mostly on socializing and professional skills during the first years of people's life. They don't really support this learning everywhere all the time. And it's really hard to come to this network situation, because we are blocked by what is known in the economics as institutional lock-in. So we kind of have a lot of inefficient arrangements connected with each other. So how do we cross that chasm? And I would say we're in exactly the same situation in many, many other industries. So it's not only about education. If we look at energy, they speak about the movement from centralized energy generation into so-called energy nets. If we look at transportation, now they're very, very centralized, but they speak about moving to self-organized transport nets with a lot of unmanned vehicles, autonomous vehicles, and so on. In healthcare, everywhere, the same situation, moving to this so-called network society, which is a really big challenge. So, I don't have final answer. I believe we all need to find an answer, but there are some hypotheses. To build a bridge to the other side, to build a bridge to this network society, education is one of the keys, but not the only key. Everywhere in all these sectors, we need to look for the way to gradually capture the agenda from this hierarchical structure, from big organizations, from centralized organizations, and start dissolving them into nets by gradually taking roles in the community, in the ecosystem. And one of the important things is that when we do it, first of all, we have to look for each other, the people who we can call bridge builders, the leaders of this transformation. We need to create projects that kind of anchor this new reality. And it's not only about education, it's about city change, it's about new technologies and so on. We have to create these projects with new ethics, which supports the horizontal relationship, more trust, more compassion, and so on. And we have to leverage what internet allows us, connection between these projects across the world, because in one single place it's really hard to assemble everything because of this chasm. So internet helps us to connect to each other. And I would say don't expect existing structures to tell you everything what to do. Don't expect governments, don't expect business to tell you what to do, because most often they anchor in the present reality. They try to protect the present reality and therefore try to combat the future. It's really the situation all over the world with this. I mean, Holland is a little bit more advanced, but everywhere all around the world there is this struggle going on. So, we want to do part of these initiatives ourselves. We want to launch educational programs, labs that study and practice this emerging reality, and some project accelerators. So if some of you are interested to collaborate with us, I'll be more than happy to. And last message to you is, and to me, and to all of us, is I think we're in a very good time to make education really human-centered and not machine-centered. And I would remind the words of one of the people who is a genius in many dimensions. He was a mathematician and architect, and he was Buckminster Fuller. He spoke that you never change things by fighting existing reality. You really change them by inventing new models that over time just basically overpower the existing model because they make them obsolete. So let's make the existing model obsolete. Let's invent a new one. Thank you.
Thanks very much for this for this short visit to the future of the planet. I maybe should come to the forum, to the Education Forum. Pavel, I had the impression, can we conclude that the inevitable future falls together today with the desired future? Because if I look at your trends, they're all trends we know, but is it inevitable or the desired, or is it both?
I would say it has dimensions of both, because there are like scenarios. I don't show them. The main scenario is our two things. One is in respect to social inequality. I mean, will the inequality increase? Because in one of these scenarios, all these technological trends will lead to a situation of super monopolism. Few big companies deciding the future of all of humanity. The other dimension is our relationship to the nature. Will we use nature, or will we become partners of nature again? So this is like a division.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I had the idea that the first two trends are the inevitable trends, and the other two, the greening and the new society, are more the desired trends.
Yeah, I would say so. There are strong forces supporting them. There are strong forces opposing them. So we have, in my opinion, we have also to make decisions for ourselves. Will we be with these trends, supporting them with our projects, with our actions, or we will be playing against them? Or maybe we'll just neutral and observe it.
You once said that in your lecture in this country where they're maybe a bit ahead of things. In what sense do we often like to hear compliments? In what sense are we ahead, you think?
Well, in my opinion, Holland is actually leading the way. It shows, first of all, the relationship to the sustainability, because a lot of sustainable practices are built in the society. You have very strong community life, and you have many advanced social practices. Even I would say legalization, which everybody talks about, legalization of light drugs, is a step forward because you need to explore the alternative states of mind to build the new reality, so to say.
It has a lot of implications for urban planning, I guess. If we look at your sheets about the profound role of citizens in the making of society, it has a lot of implications for planning.
Yes, and I was very enthusiastic to hear that you spoke about this collective and collaborative planning, which must involve all citizens. I think that's the proper way, let's say.
We're going to see if the wise city concept corresponds also with your ideas about the future. But first,
before we do that,
before we do that,
are there people who would like to ask a question to Pavel or have a comment or something to be clarified from his very inspiring presentation? Yes, I come to you with the mic. So I lean forward and then you speak, okay?
Well, this educational model that you showed, it was really interesting, but isn't it, I'm kind of curious to whom this is related, because not everyone has the chance to go to a university or has the facilities, and this new future that you talked about really triggered me to think, like, is this for the developed countries? How will it work for the rest of the world?
In my opinion, there is a great opportunity created by information technologies, because really, for instance, mobile phones becomes widespread around Africa. There are projects to use SMS, and when cheap smartphones use cheap smartphones to spread learning for people in Africa, and it can make really cheap access to education, high quality education possible. So I believe we have to use technology appropriately to overcome this barrier, not only digital divide, but also inequality divide.
Thank you. Other people? Yes, I will come to you. No, we're also live on the internet, so it's good that we can. I hold the mic for you.
Yeah, I want to continue with the question earlier said, because it's about. I think it's also about human capability. Is everybody capable to use the technology? So we see sort of trend of increasing technology inventions, but does follow human capability in general direction the same way? So because I'm not sure if that's.
I think we have to accommodate for diversity. Of course, there are different perceptions. Some people are, how do you call it? They're not able to read because dyslexic. Yes, dyslexia is one of the major problems. But it's there are solutions. Let's say visualization and so on. Attending to different channels. Anyway. There is a big movement in technology itself to make it more friendly to diversity of needs. But I would not bet everything only on technologies. I believe that, and I don't want to look at the techno-fascistic, let's say, that technology is going to solve everything for us. Instead, I think we need new human practices, and we need to spread these human practices. And again, here, I would say that, for instance, in Africa, ways people learn in Africa in some way are more advanced. They are a frontier for us. For instance, this community-based learning is really, really advanced in Africa. We have to learn from people in Africa how they do it. So I would say, yes, technology will help. It will not solve everything. And technology is part of the answer, but really the key thing is formats and skills of the future.
Thank you. Our last question, I will come to you.
I read and heard things about enhancing the human body through technology and maybe even medicine. So for now, people are looking forward to working more efficient, etc. And maybe your boss in the future can demand of you for taking certain medicine or chips in your head so that you might work in a more clever or efficient way. How do you feel about this technology, and how does it relate to people being more empathetic, social, creative, and that kind of skills?
Yeah, so how does the technology and kind of the emotional side bridge?
No, maybe not robotized, but the use of brain-computer interfaces, for instance. And actually, with my colleague, we launched a national program in Russia called NeuroNet. It's a research about the possibility of neural technologies for the future of communications. And there is a major research and technological project coming in Russia in next 2 years because of this. So we believe it's very important. And why we did it? Because we realized there are huge risks. Because it can be used to control population, for instance, or to divide the population. And it can also be used to help all of us augment and come to the next stage, so to say, of social evolution. So the question is, what is the intention of this technology? With what intent we create this technology? Are they created for military purposes or for social good? We have to bring in more, let's say, positive energy into this process. We have to think about social good here. So I encourage everybody to explore this and send the message that we need social good in these technological developments.
Yeah, thank you very much. I suggest that we do one last question and then we continue. Is that okay?
Yeah, but because your boss has the opportunity to reflect.
Okay, yes, so I will come to you for your question. Yes.
Ask a question and then you will reflect, okay? That's fine. So my question is, the principles that you presented here, were discussed previously, maybe from the middle of the 20th century. It is about reflective knowledge, it is about transferable skills, yes, about the student-centered knowledge and so on and so on. My question is what your model adds to these discussions, because of course a lot of things were theoretically discussed, less were implemented in practice. But the second question also concerns, you mentioned sustainable, it is one in one. It is about the education for sustainable development, because you also mentioned it, and there are some principles in this concept which also correspond to what you've said. So how these ideas are connected? That is the question.
So first of all, of course, many of things that we discuss are not new things. Some of them are not simply from the middle of 20th century, some of them like 3,000 or 4,000 years old. Yes, but that doesn't mean they're not actual, let's say. They've become increasingly important. That's one of the messages. The second message is that they have been discussed. Now it's time to implement. And there are many cases and standalone projects that are trying to implement elements, and we need to connect these with each other. And finally, I think what is important is that we need to bring new ethics and new rules, the new practices, as part of these educational projects. So we cannot build hierarchical structures, like even universities have this dysfunctionality. They are very hierarchically structured, and expect people to behave there as part of the network. We have to bring new principles, new qualities into educational projects.
Okay, yes, thank you very much.
Thanks very much. Let's help Pavel to bring his thoughts a little bit further, and let's confront his ideas about education now with urban planning approaches. And Anne van Strien did, during this week, the Dutch Design Week, she did a presentation on the Wise City, elsewhere in the city. The installation is still there. But she will give a brief pitch or a brief presentation of the concept of the Wise City. And maybe after, in the reflections, maybe you can do it already, if you have time in these 10 minutes, try to confront it with the perspective Pavel gave us just now. Okay, so you have the microphone. What do you want to? How do you want to do it? Standing here, sitting there in this iron? Yeah, no, or here? Yeah. Maybe I give you the microphone. Yeah, let's try.
And what we will do, we will have short 10-minute presentations, and after that, we have space for reflection and questions.
Is het een klikkertje? Hoe werkt het? Oh, gewoon nog. Is het gewoon zo? Klikken? Oké.
Uitgesloten. Staat linksop. Hier kunt het staan.
Okay, thank you. Well, Pavel, thank you very much for your... Oh, hij loopt al. Oh, that's not the idea. That's too quickly.
I love that.
I have this clicker, so maybe I can just do it myself. Well, anyway, thank you for your great introduction about this transition that we are in, I guess, in the world, but also in the education. That's why we are here today. But yeah, so as we have seen, the world, the city, the neighborhood, places are in transition. And what is ahead of us? Where are we going to? Actually, we don't know, but we think, we hope that we are going towards the Wise City. And this summer we have created a summer school together with Kees and a small group of creative people, among who Isis Boot, to explore, actually, through this transition experiment, I would call it, what is ahead of us and how can we get there towards the Wise City. Let's see, it's not working. Okay. So, what have we done? We have been doing this summer school in the Corner Spot. It's a social design hub in Doornakkers, a former Krachtwijk here in Eindhoven. And we have been busy 3 weeks, only 3 weeks, unfortunately, hopefully longer in the future, with exploring what the Wise City is. So during day one, we went into the forest and we saw all these plants and all these trees that are actually edible, which was amazing because a whole new supermarket of the future opened up just as we walked through it. So we went into the wild, and that was one of the 3 themes that was actually hanging under this main abstract concept of the Wise City, to explore how the wild could have a new function or a new place in the cityscape. Next. How did we do this? We had actually a class of 15 Russian students and a few South Korean and a few Dutch, so we were among multiple cultures, let's say. And we went through this on a co-design journey. Min Soon Wang, he guided us through this in 3 weeks, so we went from diverging into an iteration process towards converging, and this was very cool to open up the minds and the hearts of the people that collaborated with us, our students. And in these 3 weeks, they actually were guided to work towards scenarios for the Wise City. So at the end of the 3 weeks, we would get a peek into the actual practical application of what this big concept means. So, again, another day into the wild. We did Hatha yoga in the very early morning to get our brains in peace, to get our brains in a mindful state. Then we got a great lecture about grow your own home. So the architecture and urban design students actually got to know that they could also create the whole cycle of building themselves. Growing bamboo, for example, is done in Valkenswaard, just south of Eindhoven. Maybe we could enlarge this, try it on a bigger scale, on the rooftops of all buildings in Eindhoven. Who knows, we have space. Next. A creative jam, we did this in the first week as well, just to open up also our hands, to get to know the possibilities of our hands. In a half an hour we asked the students to create something that had to do with social innovation. Well, that's a huge framework, but so the first 5 minutes we saw them looking like, what is this all about? But then after 30 minutes they created these amazing structures that they had wild ideas about. So another day we went to braakliggend terrein, a temporary plot just outside of the corner spot, to actually grab plants that were growing there, to take them back literally to the public space in front of the corner spot and to plant them there again. But before we planted them, we actually researched what we had actually taken out, and it appeared that they were amazing plants. So we had all kinds of medicinal actually characteristics and edible and some you could even eat. So we hung them up in the corner spot so they could let their seeds fall, and these seeds then we could plant again into the poor grass field that is in front of the corner spot. And so in a natural way we could actually reshape the public space. And of course, we also just heard that of Pavel. There was many space for personal development, because of course, in this transition process, it's also doing something with our own bodies, with our own minds, with our own hearts. We are moved, but we should get some guidance in this process, because it's not something, not just something. So we asked them to pitch and to draw their ideas. In the meantime, we got lectures about our pee and poo, and we learned actually that it's super shame that we just flush away, let's say, our pee and poo every day. It's such a shame, because we take it out of the soil, we eat it, and we poo it, but then what? So then we don't put it back in the soil, but if we don't do that, then the food that we will eat in the future will never be as healthy as it once maybe was. So we are in urgent need of new strategies to get our pee and poo back in the soil. Then cradle to cradle is this design strategy that food, waste is food. Of course, designers among us, and probably everyone here yet knows this concept. It's very important to think in the design process already what will be used, how it will be used afterwards. So all these chairs that are here, will they be useful in the future, or will they end up in some kind of waste pile, and where is this waste pile, and then what? So we should actually think about that in the design process, and therefore shaping cycles. And then we invited some experts in Eindhoven, and we learned, for example, that we could actually live in a community in the future, in an intergenerational community among those who are seniors, those who are juniors here. And one way to do that is actually by, for example, a food forest that is already here in Eindhoven. Jan Post has an amazing food forest in his own garden, and he's now opening this up to the local community. It's amazing. Through that we can create a healthy city. 2 minutes, okay, quickly. Here are the seeds that are dropping, so then after we planted them. Next. And how did we guide the students? We did a game, a Wise City game that we are now developing further, but we still need, of course, resources to do this development process, that we are in urgent need for these resources. And this game is actually consistent of 4 ingredients: value, context, action, and resource. And through this, these are the ingredients that we need to develop Wise City scenarios, so that these little plants can grow in the future. Next. This was a lecture of Marloes van Bennekom. Next. She made an amazing social design project, graduate from the Design Academy, about integrating plants in a functional way in the city. For example, elderly homes could be connected to ginkgo biloba forests. So in a natural way, elderly people could be helped to feel themselves better. Then we saw this amazing project by Doreen Westphal, who is actually creating a mushroom farm in the basement of the TD building, a former technical building here in the city center. And actually these mushrooms, which we ate in the evening during a social dinner, they double by size every day. These are pink oyster mushrooms, incredibly healthy for our bodies, and maybe also meat. Alternative, yeah, for meat in the future. Yeah, maybe you can just click through slowly. This was a process of creating, recreating this public space in front, reshaping it, and through that also open up the debate for the public and the inhabitants of the neighborhood, because they came to ask us, like, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? And we just explained, and also I learned this, that we in Eindhoven can actually make a community garden ourselves. We can just go to the website of the municipality, and then it's very easy to make our own vegetable garden as inhabitants. So slowly but surely we worked towards these final scenarios, and they were amazing. They were about social networking and all these things that we learned during the summer school. So we slowly but surely came closer, and then in the final moment we just learned these wise lessons about resources and cyclic thinking and the natural world that is so amazing, and we should really take this into account. So through this we try to bridge all the elements and open up the sustainability debate in a more radical way, because we shouldn't go on the way we are doing now. We should actually step back and rethink what we were doing in the past and maybe learn from that, and then we can actually grow. Or maybe not. That's okay. So please let's keep improving our urban wisdom, and through that, maybe final slide, the seeds which are now be planted can grow in the future. Next.
Thanks a lot. Yes. Thanks a lot, Anna. Yes. So, here with 2 microphones, can I give you this just for a moment? Our next speaker, Philip Rol, can I invite you? We switched to Jaap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We had the idea, for reasons of time management, to have all the pitches in a row and then do the reflection, because otherwise it will take too much time.
Yeah, so Philip, architect, founder of Atelier to the Bone. 10 minutes for you.
He's combining entrepreneurial and transformational approaches, I guess.
Thank you. I hope this works. Yeah, it does. Well, Pavel, thank you for this inspiring talk of you, and I think I pretty much share your image of the future, but it makes me think about Back to the Future as well at this moment, especially this week, because I cannot help realizing that this is your image of the future, and 30 years from now we will realize that parts of it were true and parts of it were not. And I would like to say, just don't worry about the chasm, because we're all working on it with 7 billion people at this moment, and this future will come. And it brings us to the difference between the wise city and the smart city, because I don't think we should worry about it as well. As we see, a lot of people are busy with technology and how can we create this smart city. And we see people as well busy with the wise city. And for me, the difference is quite simple. The smart city is about quantity, and the wise city is about quality. And I'm not going to talk too much about education, but more about architecture. I am an architect, started 3 years ago with these 2 guys. Actually in a market, in an economy where this is reality. This is Ravel Plaza from MVRDV. This is on the Zuidas, the financial mile in Amsterdam. Was in the news last week because this won the big competition. And if you ask me, we should be critical on what we're seeing here. Everyone falls in love, almost everyone. But we're seeing here an image of a future building with green in the Netherlands, which will never look like this, with a sun that's, well, I think a few days in the year is shining like this. And we're seeing this building from a bird's eye perspective. No one of us will see it this way. So what we're actually seeing is, I think, not something that relates in any way to either a smart city or a wise city. And that's what we're doing with our company. We're being kind of critical on this and trying to relate architecture to value of life. In design, we already see that shift. Social design, it's a big thing. Service design is coming up. We see the shift from finance-driven solutions to solutions that relate to society and environment, and they make it if they're financially feasible. So finance is important, but it's not the starting point anymore. And architects, if you ask the big architects, they make buildings. And we think that's wrong. That should be another something different. And why can it be different? Because architects are not there to make buildings, in my opinion. But architects have the capacity of thinking in concepts. And they have the capacity to transform space. And if you relate that to society, there are so many solutions for, yeah, thanks. There are so many solutions for architects to get a job. And still they have a problem finding that. Sorry. This is what Le Corbusier did about, well, decades ago. Kind of the same happened to Stripe. And if we see, we talked about Stripe a moment ago. This is what Stripe looks like now. And of course it was a top-down development, that's totally true. But it is a top-down development with the realization that space and urban design is made by people and not by finance. So that means that the people that realized the Stripe as it is right now were quite aware of which people are interested in a space that is not yet inhabited, and people that are coming to that space when it's already alive. Yeah, what I want to do, I don't know how much time I have, because this was, I think, the most important starting point, but I have a few projects of our own company to explain in which way we do that, because I think it's necessary to talk about examples together, to have an idea about how can we create something new, a wise city or a smart city, whatever. 6 minutes, nice.
Why is it called To the Bone? Maybe you can explain that.
That's because we think about design as something fundamental, and you should get to the why question, and not only design because there is a certain bag of money and a demand for a building. It's about what is the deeper value that you create. So I have a few examples, and I'll go shortly through them. And they all started with some realization of a problem in society or a problem we have with our profession. So for example, this one, vacancy of office buildings. It reached 8 million square meters in the Netherlands. And that's not only because of about the crisis of years ago, but if we have a growing economy in the next years, this number will still rise, and that's simply because we become better and better every day to be more efficient with our space. So this is actually where our company started, with a solution for that that's really cheap and that is totally detachable, which means that every empty building can be transformed very easily into a group of young entrepreneurs having a space to work, even though maybe the building will be torn apart 2 years after that. Right now we're developing that into a living concept where a house with quality, that is safe as well, can be put into these buildings. Simply because society right now is transforming, that's no news, but buildings are one of the most static things there are. And we think that with concepts like this, it can better relate to each other. Another example, architecture should be for everyone instead of architecture for the 1%, because the 99% mostly sees only the images, and the 1% is paying the architect. And we try to come up with a new solution for the garden shed for people with a row house. That is not an expensive solution that you put in your garden, and you need a big garden for that and a big bag of money. But this solution is put on the border between two houses, which means you can have, well, from left to right, there's something for an animal, there are benches and a table, a kitchen, a bathroom, and in the end even a sleeping space. But it's shared with your neighbors, which means you only need to give away half of the square meters, you only have to pay half of it, and you add maximum flexibility to your garden. And this is the closed position. It simply looks like a garden shed, like a garden fence. A mixture of functions will happen more and more in the future, and architects should facilitate that. So this is about this flexibility as well. Therefore we designed Brunest in Eindhoven, and it's a space where a kind of showroom for interior materials is combined with a free working space. And on beforehand we didn't know how this would work out, because it's a mixture of two strange functions. So we designed a piece of furniture that accommodates that. This shelf system with a desk on two sides can be adjusted in all possible positions. So you can work standing, you can make a drawing table out of it, you can work sitting, or it can even be an easel or a presentation, how do you say that, presentation panel. What we do with that is that every square meter in a building can have multiple functions. It's not like that's a location to present, that's for exposition, and this is to work. Now every square meter can be everything at different moments in the day. And the last example I have, urban design is more about the process than about the product. I think there's a big misunderstanding in what is urban design, because mostly it's an architect that draws another great image of what can be in the future. And 6 months or a year after that, it is something that needs revision. So urban design, more than architecture, I think, is all about who comes together and what is the dot on the horizon and what is the first step we have to take for that. And that's something we're doing in the northwest of Eindhoven, Brainport Park. It's an experiment. There's a cooperation of about 30 companies right now working together on the future of this area, and they all take responsibility, and the municipality gave out of hands what will happen to this area. So the future might look like this, but this is updated constantly. And every time there are new companies interested in what's going to happen there, and I have really no idea what it will look like 20 years from now. But this is our image of that future. So that brings us to the conclusion, what we started our company with. That is, what is architecture and how can we add something? And we think it really is about the understanding of the world as far as we can, and turning it into a more meaningful and humane place. That's it. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Philip. Great, very inspiring. Should I go? You can take a seat. Thank you. Tessa Steenkamp. Yes. I give her a short introduction. She calls herself a creative technologist and a user experience designer. Studied industrial design here in Eindhoven, and later on also did a master at the AA Architectural School in London. I will give you the microphone, Tessa. Kees, we need a hand. I would think so. Kan die er? Kan deze eruit?
Ja, rustig.
Zal ik klikken? Of doe je het?
Ik wil wel klikken.
Oké. Ja.
Doet dit het?
Nee.
Oh, oké.
Als je wil lopen, zal ik voor jou klikken.
Oké, nee, ik blijf voor hier staan. Hi, sorry, I came slightly unprepared because the event that I'm actually reflecting on right now only ended this morning. So please reflect with me. To give you an idea of the framework of Hack the Neighborhood. Hack the Neighborhood was a hackathon organized last Monday and Tuesday here in Eindhoven. And it was part of a bigger conference that was in the whole country in 12 different cities, which is called ISOCARP 2015. And then on Wednesday and Thursday, all those cities came together in Rotterdam and they compared each other's results. And this morning I came back from Rotterdam. So, to give you an idea of the perspective that I'm telling this story from, I'm a designer. I studied industrial design here in Eindhoven at the University of Technology. And after that, I went to London to study architecture. So, the general kind of concept of industrial design is not... there are different ideas about this. What I noticed is that so let me explain you what the University of Technology taught me that industrial design was. Industrial design is a result from the Industrial Revolution in the beginning of the previous century. And it taught craftsmen to design for manufacturing in factories while maintaining the kind of human scale of products. And nowadays we're in a digital revolution, which is a second or a third wave revolution. And we design, now we design for these new technologies of manufacturing, digital technologies and electronics. And the industrial designer now designs the human scale for these kind of products. I concluded this education with an internship at Daan Roosgaarde. He's an artist in Holland and he designs interactive landscapes. And this made me more interested in how people relate with their environment and the people that they share this environment with rather than their interaction with gadgets. So I moved to London and I started to notice that in Holland, if you say you're an industrial designer, the usual answer is, do you want to work for IKEA? And when I went to London, architects always asked me, have you ever made a chair? Because apparently for architects, the chair is the ultimate kind of product that they want to create to show how they deal with balance. And it's kind of like their signature piece, whereas I'm, as an industrial designer, I'm not interested in chairs at all because I think there's enough chairs in this world. So I started calling myself an interaction designer. So everyone thought that means I design websites. So I changed my title again to social designer. But then interaction designers say social design is bullshit. And architects said, it was even worse, this is a real quote from my second day in architecture school in London. It said, better not use the word social anymore. They tried it in the 80s and it didn't really work. So this brings me back to Hack the Neighborhood, which is the hackathon of last Monday and Tuesday. Kees approached me about a year ago if I wanted to help him with organizing a workshop for ISOCARP. And ISOCARP is the International Society of City and Regional Planners. And it would take place during the Dutch Design Week. So I thought it would be nice to kind of use these different perspectives on design and different visions on professions and combine social designers from the Dutch Design Week and the people who are not a fan of the word social. I did this together with Erin Kelly from Detroit, Future City. That's a company that works on the regeneration of Detroit. And Carlo Capra, who worked for Stipo, which is an urban renewal company in Rotterdam, and he's from Milan. And actually, we organized it all over Skype, which might be, where's Pavel? Which is one of the trends, I guess. We organized the event over Skype and never saw each other before because we never used video. And then on Sunday night, we finally met, and Monday the event started. So we made mixed teams.
to, under the motto of friction intended, let's call it that. So we had multicultural people from the Isocarp Society. People came from South Africa, China, India, all over the world, came to Eindhoven, and we combined it with the social designers and a few architects as well, I think, and teachers from Eindhoven. And we made the teams as diverse as possible. And from Isocarp, we were assigned a theme for our workshop, which was how to react when traditional industries move away. And because I know Eindhoven quite well, I suggested to rephrase this a bit towards what happens after the initial regeneration, because the industries moved away about 20 years ago. The industries, I mean Philips. So yeah, I will now so those mixed teams of different nationalities and different professions, we put them on local challenges so that they could talk to the people that actually deal with those challenges on a daily basis. And those were the challenges. So one was called Hack the Ownership. It's about a little park that is right next to Stripe S, right in between Stripe S and Stripe T. And on the left you can see what it looked like in 1998, and on the right you see what it looked like in 2012. It used to belong to Philips, but Philips sold it to a private owner who was just an investor, let's say. A few years ago, he got arrested for fraud, and the park was put up for auction. He didn't maintain it at all. Then the city was actually planning on Place a bit, but didn't communicate about this with the people in the city. And then before the auction took place, a new private investor from China this time bought the park, and he's not planning on doing anything with it either, because he just wants to earn money from it. So the people who live around it, they want to use it, but they feel unsafe there because it's not maintained. It's a bit of a dark spot. So together with this international and multidisciplinary team, we went to visit the site, and we went to interview people about the ideas that they had for the place. And we found out that there are already a lot of ideas. So they proposed to put all these ideas in a framework and maybe assign an ambassador of the park, and start with the most low impact or low budget ideas like urban gardening or urban camping, things that you can just do overnight. And then, what did they call it? They called it Adopt the Park. So those parties could adopt the park for 1 month, do their thing with it, maybe have a closing party, and then hand over the imaginary key to the next team. And then in the end, it might end up with one of those ideas that are already there. On the right, you can see someone who thinks the park should have a swimming pool in the shape of a light bulb. And what I found really interesting from this teamwork is that there were social designers who knew all of these social ideas for the park, and there were urban planners, and I'm not an urban planner, and as soon as I saw them work, they looked at the map, and they saw that Stripe S actually opens up. It's like a triangle. It opens up towards this park, and then at the end, if you walk all the way through the area, it's just shut off with a big highway, and then there's a abandoned park. Another challenge was a sports park in Drensdorp. Drensdorp is a neighborhood right next to Stripe S, and the sport park has been closed for about a year now because the local football club went bankrupt. And they said, just open it up first, see what happens to it, because currently there's a lot of plans being made for it, and people want to turn it into a BMX park and an urban sports park. And no one really knows what percentage of the neighborhood around it is actually supporting those individual ideas. So they said, just open it up first, organize some kind of participatory event, and see what happens to the space if you give people the opportunity. Ooh, Okay, so the third challenge was hectare regeneration, which was also about Strijp S and Drensdorp, the neighborhood right next to it. And Strijp S was abandoned about 20 years ago by Philips, and then a lot of effort was put into it to turn it into the next design, the design hotspot of Eindhoven. But the neighborhood right next to it has all the, is where the former employees of Philips lived, and no real regeneration took place there. And it's kind of trapped now by Strijp S, Strijp T, and Strijp R. It's in the center, but they almost, the team that worked on it talked with the locals there, and they almost have this aversion against designers now because they're surrounded by it. And they said, you have to inquire what's happening in the neighborhood itself, then exhibit the local skills of the people that live in Drensdorp, and then celebrate these skills. They don't have to jump on the train of the regeneration of the Strijp areas, but they can have their own identity and their own regeneration. And then Isocarp came along, and they were like, when we were organizing this, they said, yes, but our participants, they wrote papers. And then me and the other designers that were organizing this were like, wait, this is going to be the first event ever during the Dutch Design Week that involves academic papers. So we categorized the papers on the subjects that they were written about, and then we had open panel discussions as sort of inspirational moments during the work on the challenges. And this one is a example of a particularly interesting one. It was a girl from Ijevsk, sitting over there, Amira, and a guy named Paul from Liverpool, and they were working on exactly the same thing, which was creating an identity for a city that has the only identity that they have at this moment is quite a difficult one. Like in Ijevsk, the thing that people share is that they all worked for the weapon manufacturing, which is not really something people are proud of. So how do you do that? So experiences were exchanged, and then the conclusion, which I just made up in the train on my way here, but this friction intended, these conflicts, they lead to, between different professions and different cultures, they lead to insight on both cultural differences, but also professional differences and identity. And it's really interesting to, it's really important to keep talking between those different professions, to be aware how people might approach the same kind of scenarios from a different perspective. Then the conclusion that we presented at the Isocarp conference on Wednesday and Thursday was from urban planner to social programmer. Because urban planning used to be about top-down, just drawing out whatever a neighborhood needed to look like in about 10 years, and then waiting for the people to move in. But now we have all those physical structures, and it's important to design the new social infrastructure within those existing physical structures. How will you make sure that all those empty office buildings that Philippe was talking about, how can you use them again, and how will you make sure that works? So then some reactions from the most conservative urban planners that we found at the Isocarp Congress. One person said, I'm not just a programmer, I need to translate these social, economical and political parameters into physical structures. That is my job. Then the second one said, just translating, we're not translating, you're a professional, you have your own view on this. It's not just making this into a physical structure by listening. And then Marianne Scheurs, who's sitting over there, she said, well, I do believe that the future of Eindhoven is filled with translators. And then the mayor of Rotterdam said, when guiding transformation, sometimes you have to lead, but sometimes you also have to follow. And then one more thing, people were accusing all those young people at the Congress of using too many buzzwords. So then the last hour of the conference, we put all the buzzwords on the wall, and we asked people to contribute their definitions. So we collectively defined the definitions of those buzzwords.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, and especially for your effort and the short time you had to prepare this. I think this is a very interesting insight that you have given us. We will move to the last presentation of this first round. Treni Naninga, where are you? Ah, there, great. Hi.
She's on fake grounds.
Fake grounds. Yeah. That sounds very interesting.
Fake grounds.
I have something to give to the people.
Ah.
So.
You do that first?
I'll do that.
Can I help you?
Just, you will just move along.
We have these assistants. So, visual artist, ambassador of the, and I use the Dutch word vaaggrond, and you will give the right English explanation. Yeah? Presentation, computer. PowerPoint of PDF?
It's a PowerPoint.
Hoe heet je?
Monica. Ja. En ja, die bovenste. Yes.
So, Treintje Naninga.
Treni.
Sorry, Treini.
Do I use this? Or can I just go nowhere? Right. Hello everyone. I'm probably going to say a lot of things that we heard throughout all the speeches. If it's not all new to you, please, I hope you brought your coloring pencils. Feel free to color in your color plate. So, I'm going to talk to you about vaaggrond, which is a Dutch term. You can also see the logo. It's a little bit fake. Well, that's very fitting because vaaggrond means vague grounds. And that refers to a sort of soil. When you look at kinds of soil, you can mostly tell what happened there, if it was farm ground or industrial ground or there was a forest there. And vague ground is a sort of soil in which you cannot see what happened there. So we're using this term because we liked it a lot, and we are using this soil to. There's an artist platform over at vaaggrond, and there's a lot of artists there presenting their work. We have an annual exhibition, but we want to be much more than just an exhibit platform. We want to be more than an exhibit site. And I want to talk to you a little bit about education, because we've heard a lot of education today. I want to talk to you about the roadmap of education in 2030. Next. No? Yes. The roadmap of education. As we've heard, the world is changing rapidly in a lot of ways, in bad ways. There's a lot of crisis. There is financial crisis, there's political crisis, there's environmental crisis, all sorts of crises, bad things. Some people are unhappy and disconnected, and this is a situation that we want to change. But it's not all bad. We are here in Eindhoven, and Eindhoven is part of Brainport, which is, as we've heard, the smartest region of the world. Well, that says a lot. We're supposedly very, very smart. That's great. There's a lot of technology, and there's a lot of smart people. And what does this mean for education in the future? It's going to be a lot different. And the roadmap of education in 2030 is a sort of prediction about how it is going to look. And 2030 might sound far away, but it's not so far away from now. We are there before we know it. So how is it going to look? Well, the plan is to allow students to discover their drives, their ambitions, and their passions, and design their own learning course. And this might not necessarily be in a school. It might take place on several playgrounds. And Vaargrond aspires to be such a playground, where all sorts of different students can learn along with the artists. How's this going to look? Here we have the student, and he has a mentor who is kind of a teacher, but more someone who helps the student find his ambitions and his passions and his drives. And there's also a role model. In this case, the role model is the artist. And the artist is mostly someone who's always busy finding his drives and finding his passions. He's very aware of his passions and his drives. And therefore, he's a very good role model. I think, we think. And they can help people find their own passions. And the student is going to walk along with the artist, but he's not only going to walk along, he's also going to help him by co-creating artworks with him. He's going to help him making his work, really. And in this way, we want to create a society of people who are really connected to each other and connected to their own passions and drives. And that sounds like a lot better place. So that's great. Let's go along. And they are going to develop all sorts of projects. And the way in which projects are developed now is there is an idea. This is an idea. And then we're going to look for, when you have an idea, you have to look for money. You have to look for a financial basis to get that idea working. Once we have that, we wait a while and then we have money and then we can proceed to make the product. A chair in this case. Because designers make chairs, as we've just heard. But what if there is no money? Then the idea can't develop itself. It can't exist. So without money, there's no development. And this whole process of asking for money takes a lot of time. So by the time there is money, there might not be a need for the idea. It might be too late. So this is the new way. We have an idea. We start working on it. We have people, we look for people who want to co-create, for example, these students, but also real workmanship. And we're always also going to look for people who are interested in the idea and who might even give money. They like the idea so much that they are prepared to make it happen through crowdfunding, for example. And that might lead to the product, to the plan we thought of originally, might also lead to lots of other ideas, other products. Hey, we wanted to make this chair, but we ended up making a rocket chair, which is fine too. Or we might have all sorts of other ideas who are also very inspiring. The conclusion is that we already set this in motion without waiting for enough money to make it happen. So, this is what Vaargrond wants to do. This is the website of Vaargrond, www.vaargrond.nl. Please go there at your own leisure. This website is made by one of our students. We have 2 students at the moment, MBO students, if that means anything to you. And they want to develop websites. But when they got here with us, they had no idea to do it, and they had no idea about the work field in the first place. And then we took them to places where people are making websites professionally. And then they said, yeah, we really want to do this. This is fun. We want this. And this website was made in, I think, 6 weeks or so. From nothing to a functioning website. And it has flaws. It's not finished yet. But it's getting there. And it's a functional thing that we are really using. And we're going to use in the future. So it's, when he was at school, he wouldn't have had the chance to make something people are actually going to use. And that's something that we want. And the point of this website is that artists can present their work, which they are going to exhibit in the annual exhibition. But they can also ask money through crowdfunding for their project. They can offer services, because they're artists, but they might have other specialities. And people can fund them to make the exhibition happen. And one of the projects of Vaargrond, which we are currently working on, the coloring plate belongs to that, is the keukentafel lijkt een gesprek en een spel, which translates into, get my note here, the kitchen tablecloth conversation game. What is that? It's a way of creative problem solving through a meal. It's not only solving your problems creatively, but also deliciously. There are several courses in the meal, and all those courses are also a metaphor in a creative process. First, you have the first course, and you're going to explore the context of the a problem you might have met a group of people. Talking about a problem is not fun, but through this game, we hope to make it solving a problem fun. So first we're going to explore the problem. Is it a problem for me only, or is it a problem for you as well? Is the problem a bit more different for you? Is it the same? And then we're going to look for ways of solving this problem. And we're going to, there's, in a group of people, there are several sorts of people who all approach a problem very differently. And we're going to make use of all those different roles. It's also a little bit of a role-playing game. The website of this is made by another student of ours, also still under development. And I'll just tell you to look at the website. And that's it for now. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, and I think this was also a great wrap-up with showing the old and the new and what are the differences for that.
Next is some reflections on what we've heard from Pavel and the 4 pitches, and I'd like to ask Pavel in a minute to give his reflection on the pitches and how does these pitches correspond with his ideas on learning and education in the future. I was impressed by Anne van Strien, by her approach. Where's Anne? Yeah, she's there. Because to me it looked very holistic, mind and body, mindful, pee and poo. But also, if you think in terms of planning and education, it was a mix of raising awareness, personal development, knowledge, skills. It was every in every sense, it was a holistic approach in learning about how to deal with the city. And my question for Pavel is this the kind of learning you see in the future? My immediate question for Anne is how are you going to communicate this whole new approach? Maybe you should give your answer right away. Yeah, simply push the button. Yeah, the red one. Yeah,
the big one. Okay.
Yeah, you learn. Ooh. You are learning very quickly.
Okay.
Yeah.
How
do you communicate? How you disseminate this whole approach?
Yeah.
How do you do that?
Yeah. Well, by giving many presentations like here, like yesterday in the talk show of the Dutch Design Week. Tomorrow and the day after tomorrow, we are actually present in the corner spot. We are 89 on the map, so please all come to visit so I can give you more in-depth information if you wish. And hopefully we can, like I said, develop our methodology, our Y City game, our Y City ideas for the city of Eindhoven. For other neighborhoods, hopefully also for other cities, maybe in other countries. So this will for me be a lifelong project, I hope. And it's yet to develop. But so as I presented, this was kind of a standalone thing, but I hope that in the future this can also be part of existing education systems, for example, those who are already existing in Eindhoven. So it can be both, but now it had the form of a summer school, but I can also imagine that it has the form of a festival or whatever form it gets, as long as the idea of the Y City gets promoted, and not only by me, but by all of us.
And how does this approach relate to what Tessa Steenkamp told us about Hack the Neighborhood? I had a feeling it was pretty close what she's doing. And
Yeah, I was a participant of the workshop also. So.
In Hack the Neighborhood. Okay. Now we see.
Yeah, I guess actually I think hacking is a form also of reconstructing. So rethinking, and in that way it's actually similar.
But in your terms, it's Hatha Yoga, and in her terms, is seeking the conflict. So there is a sort of difference in her approach. When I compare it with that of yours.
Yeah.
It's Hegel, conflict, these, antithese, brings us further. So there are similarities, but there are also some differences. How do you, could I have your short reaction? Oh, you were there when Anne van Strien presented?
I wasn't, unfortunately.
Oh, you
when she was presenting, yes.
Yeah.
I wasn't a participant of her workshop.
Okay. How does Hack the Neighborhood relate to this Y City concept?
Well, something that comes to mind is I had a conversation with Erin, one of the other organizers of Hack the Neighborhood, and she's American, and she was talking about Portland, Oregon, which is a very left-wing kind of hippie city, and she said in Portland there's a lack of conflict, and it means that it doesn't matter whether you're vegetarian or not, it's about who does vegetarian the best. And in some situations these kind of systems bring you forward if it's very specialized, but in other situations it also makes the gap between different perspectives bigger. So I think, it's two sides of this.
Sometimes you need a conflict to bring
to make things visible. Very interesting.
Or you need a new form of dîner pensant, because it was my association when I heard you introducing the kitchen cloth table conversations method. I thought this is a form of a new form of a dîner pensant.
Yeah, maybe. I think there's links, definitely. Yeah, it's working. Yeah, there's definitely links, I think. This whole kitchen table cloth conversation game, it's very difficult for me in English as well. It could take place in a garden or in a hacked.
In the Wise City.
Maybe it's
in
good
Wise City, yeah.
that we get a reflection from the other side of the room for a moment. I mean, I also realized that we call this a dialogue, and we are in the heart of the debate space of the municipality. So we have these distances from each other. So that's why I go to the other side of the table. That's what they, in political context, normally say to the people who kind of oppose your position. But we don't here do this. George Alfred Lino, director of one of the buildings here next to the Design House, and also of the, do I pronounce it right, the STREP Festival, or do you just say Stripe? Okay.
The Stripe Biennale.
Yeah.
I'm not the director, I'm the managing director.
Okay,
which is a different thing. It has to do with business strategy and communications.
Much broader.
Which is a different dimension of content development.
Yeah. And what do you make of the discussion that we have here so far relating to your work and your approach?
Well, I must say that I'm working in the cultural sector now, but I've worked in the bank. I've worked at the university, I've done research, so I've been inside all these worlds that seem to be, that in this discussion sound like they should all be abolished, and maybe, maybe because of those experiences I became a bit cynical, and
this afternoon?
No, not this afternoon, but in general, because you see, when we talk about the economical crisis and we talk about the role of banks in economical crisis, when you worked inside a bank, you see things differently. Just like when you say that there's a responsibilization of local governments for the city. When you work in a local government, you see that things are different. I am a bit critical of those expectations that the government should make things for us, should make the city for us. Of course that the government has a role, but ultimately public space belongs to us, and not us designers or us architects or us artists, but us people. And some of us are trained as designers, some of us are trained as human resource managers, some of us are trained as architects, but in essence, we all have learned skills to produce something, to generate something, and what we have in common is this ideal of making this a better world.
Yeah, and these different strategies that were presented here, I didn't hear the word government that much in these new strategies. What do you think of this approach?
Well, in these projects that I've seen, I knew some of them. I didn't know all of them. In my research, I work specifically in the field of experience design in public space. So the theme smart cities is not foreign to me. And I think there's a different dimension of scale when you're comparing, like we were on the beginning, comparing whether smart city is our future as opposed to wise city. And we're comparing a global movement with one very interesting project. But in terms of scale, it's like comparing a ZZP with Philips.
Yeah, so you're questioning whether you can upscale or downscale these principles.
Yes, and that is always what I try to understand in the individuality of these projects that unquestionably have a huge value, especially in the capacity that you have of activating local communities. What I'm always very interested is what do you learn from it, zooming out from the microscopic experience in the neighborhood level. When you zoom out of this experience, what did you learn from it that you can apply in a macroscopic and in a societal level? Because that was the difficulty I had today. And I could elaborate on this from a theoretical perspective, from a research perspective for hours. We don't have that time.
Maybe you can give one tip, because it sounds to me a bit like of all the skills we've talked about, you kind of advocate the skill of being able to transform local to global and vice versa.
I think I would focus on the simplest of skills, which is to enhance the quality of dialogue. We have this tendency among us, the creatives, to use all these expensive words, then in itself segregate the dialogue that we're having from the community that we want to bring in and be part of it. I've attended several cultural events, especially during this week, and in the ones that I was speaking, I was very interested in knowing how many people sitting there are not directly related with the cultural sector.
And it's a surprisingly low number.
It's a very low percentage, and that is something that worries me a lot. And that is something that I see that such experiences could bridge. But what I miss a little bit sometimes is this reflection on how to make it simple, such a simple dialogue that people don't feel segregated.
It's a very interesting point, yeah.
Okay. Maybe we should give the microphone to Pavel, because this is a question for him. I was just asking Anne van Strien about dissemination of this whole concept of the wise city, and George just said, how can we upscale these kind of new approaches? And that's exactly what you're busy at doing.
Yeah.
So maybe you could give us some advice on that.
Very practical. First, short reaction, so then also the element can respond, because he also has to go.
Okay. Okay, but I thought it was 4 o'clock, so we have lots of time. But no problem.
Okay, a practical reaction to...
Practical reaction, and then Miriam.
I think the dimension of economy is very important. So I think we have to seek new economic models which will make this project more sustainable, which will demonstrate this new quality. So I didn't hear a lot of discussion in this space about things such as sharing economy. There was a discussion about crowdfinancing, which I think is very relevant. Yeah. And also I believe that the movement regarding cryptocurrencies opens up a huge space when we can talk introduce new dimensions such as reputation, authenticity, and so on, that can be sort of measured by these indicators of cryptocurrency. So I'm thinking that we have to seek, in addition to new pedagogies and new social innovations, we have to seek new economic models which will transcend the industrial economy model. And I think that will help root all these things and scale them up.
I agree that's in the end everything is changing, and we really need new solutions, and they will be both sustainable and economic and social, otherwise they won't function. But the only way to make them is to make cultural decisions. We make our own world, and as you stated, you had 2 lines of thoughts that you really wanted to happen. But if we won't do it, it won't happen. So the interesting thing is that's the reason that it's not enough to be locally involved. In the end, you have to make an infrastructure in which some things are taken into account that function for the whole. For instance, yesterday oh my God, I'm so tired. My procurement on light went out, and from the start, part of it it's about open infrastructure, open access, open data, open services. Because if it won't be that, it won't be about a society that is able to create itself. And in the end, what is happening is that the governance structure will have to has to be, to counter, to be different. It's really about politics, but politics, as it's done nowadays, is at the end of its era. And what we have to have is that everybody is, by the doing, being political again. And the real question is, how do you create it at a certain scale? That is really the problem. But if we won't create it at a certain scale, the big companies from the ancient economic policy will do it for us, and then you have a money-driven society continuing, because it's already so. I was so touched by your comment on social. We tried it in the 80s, but it didn't work. No, and afterwards we get the neoliberalism, and that worked. That made us all very happy. So when I saw the comment, actually, that's the mayor of Rotterdam made on my statement, was he was still in the hierarchical structure, the top-down structure. You are on top or you're at the bottom. You are following or you are leading. And the wonderful thing about the now is none of us is leading and that the others will follow. We are part of an egalitarian system. And yes, it is my job to take care that some things happen. But if I'm doing it without everybody more or less agreeing that's the road to go, I'm just a dictator. So do we want our politicians to be dictators, or do we want our politicians to be part of our society? And in the end, do we all to take responsibility for the change? And it's in education, it's in our social system, it's in our economic system, but in a way, it's the change of our society. And to top it off, the new development is in bio. And that means that after the new development, the institutionalization of everything that is part of the information technology, we have still a long, beautiful way to go with all things that are related to soil and plants and nature. And I think that in the end, that will make everybody especially happy, being connected to nature again. Yeah. And then I leave because I have to do an opening, but it was wonderful to hear what the projects were about. We are not against the projects, but it's just that we are worried about how can we make it something that works in a way for everybody, because otherwise a lot of people will fall at the side of our development.
Well, it's an thank you very much. Interesting point from a representative of a city who is specialized in high-tech, hard economy, to have this plea for greening the city and use biomedics and bio themes and in order to make a more circular city.
This city will be one gigantic green park in which people do their thing.
Yeah, we heard it from.
And to me, it's now the city that never sleeps. Anyway, I don't.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. But
thanks a lot.
The Alderman is still raising the question, Pavel. You told us about how the question is how can we upscale new concepts, and you talked about new economic models. The Alderman says no, we are in the need of new infrastructure. What kind of channels can we use to have these concepts on a bigger scale?
Well,
there's still a question for you.
Yeah, a simple question for me, I would say. But
first very difficult, I guess.
I'm satirical. But I think, first of all, you asked me first whether these projects really demonstrate the essence of what we anticipate as part of the future education. And I would say definitely yes. These are all the stems of the future and elements that build on strong trends like discussion of that education should be action-based and hacker mentality should come to like everyone with a positive attitude. That education should be around real-life problems. It should be holistic and mindful. It should have a lot of collaboration and involve users and involve children in discussion of adult problems and so on. So all of these are elements, and I would say they all demonstrate the shift that is occurring. In our words, we call it the shift from engineering mind to ecosystemic mind. So an ecosystemic mind assumes that we are kind of become equal players in the emerging reality, and And I would say that in addition to economic decision, which I wanted to mention, that we definitely need infrastructure that allows us to build these movements. And so again, I would emphasize the dimension of connectivity and internet, which I think was not fully present in this project that we discussed. But
so
it should
digital age.
Yeah.
Yeah, but on the other hand, you need personal. A physical contact.
Yes.
For instance, what Tessa told us about hacking the neighborhood, the only thing you can learn from each other is do it from people from different continents. Maybe the question is for you, Tessa, can ISOCARP, Let's Reinvent Planning, can such an organization play a role in upscaling new concepts, or is it simply an old institutional model?
Upscaling, I'm not sure, but of course our main goal for this event was that we take all these people with different cultural backgrounds and different professional backgrounds all to the same spot in Eindhoven where we tackle local problems. And then they can take all their experience with them and discuss their different perspectives or their different approaches. And then, of course, we hope that from this friction that I was talking about, that they take that home with them again. And then, that it inspires them and gives them maybe a new aspect of their own identity as a planner or designer. So maybe not upscaling, but at least the concept of hack the neighborhood has been spread over the world now.
So it's not only the digital age, it's also personal contacts, like you being here now in this room.
Yes, but I think we have to leverage both. We definitely need personal connection, and we need platforms that will allow us to keep the connection going once we get separated from each other. So this is a challenge for us, how we can build an international movement of the new kind, where the seeds of this new reality are spread across the planet, where we can come and learn from each other and then go back and do the work in our place.
Maybe it's a good moment to do a bit of a reality check. We've been talking about these different concepts. I also am very curious, Marcel Mus, happy that you're here, urban designer, urban strategist, and also working closely now at the University of Eindhoven. Can you tell a little bit about how all these ideas of changing education, how you try to bring that into practice?
Yeah, he's gone, George. I wanted to say that I really felt a little bit the same. I had the same experience as he had, and it's really funny because now I didn't prepare for this, but it's like a coincidence that now I'm suddenly someone who is a representative of a very old institution. I'm kind of I just only worked there for 3 years, let's say. We're trying to work from, in a way, we're trying to do the same things as you are doing. But of course, from an institutional, within an institutional framework. So I wondered during your really nice lectures what I'm doing there. So it's What
are you doing where?
Well, at this old institution, your guys seem to have much more fun, but then.
For existential problems, there's drinks afterwards.
Thank you. But I guess the drinks were really close, so that's why I tried to introduce those. No, but I think I'm trying to, of course, to make a point, because I do think that it's important, if you talk about upscaling and trying to develop new infrastructures, that you need to work also from within the institutions and to renew these institutions. What I really valued in your lectures, let's say, for example, the one that Tessa made, is really asking simple questions and starting the dialogue. That's a really important thing. But the other thing that should happen is that we have to have not so much. That's another one that I got from your lecture. Not only ad hoc-ish initiative and buzzwords, but have a kind of continuity in the development of learning communities, and there's a lot of ambitions in this town. There's a lot of we even have a covenant between the university and the city. Thank God. So there's this ambition, but there's a lot of work to do to develop that.
Yeah, and then maybe one aspect, because of course I understand the dilemma that you say, like I find myself almost surprisingly within the institute now and trying to work to kind of renew it from inside out. What can you as a teacher or as a school do to also help to get beyond this big cloud of buzzwords? Whether these buzzwords are good or bad, because we can also can say that buzzwords come up when we are searching. So it means we need new terms for like labeling the reality.
Well, George was saying something about that. You know that these kind of workshops and also the workshops that we organize have the risk to only work with the cultural elite, let's say. And it's very hard to get beyond that. And what we try to do is to work with the people in the field. And of course, everyone is trying to do that. But in a way, that comes back to my first point. You can only really achieve to do that if you work for years, let's say, in a certain area, because that's when you can meet these people. Not only meet these people, but also have real discussion, because you need to build trust, and also you need to have a reflection, not only, let's say, also for your own knowledge. I mean, this is one of the things that I found really interesting in your lecture, and that knowledge is something that is not anymore built only in the university, but it's something that you build together, that you develop together.
Yeah. Thanks for this moment. Like our second reality check, Jan Post, former director of Philips Netherlands. I'm curious to hear your view on like in your experience because you're a person bridging this business world and also the, let's say, creative world, as diverse they both might be. How have you done that over the last years, and what do you make of these strategies that you've heard about today?
Well, first of all, I'm very happy to be part of the whole scene this afternoon. Yeah. I was remembering, I was a student in Amsterdam in the late 60s, and I was one of them occupying the Maagdenhuis, the office of the board, because it was high time to knock down the elite structure. And still today I'm feeling myself a student, especially this afternoon, so I'm completely on the side of the young, not students anymore, I think, in the majority, but they like to knock down, of course, it's high time, the analog, top-down pyramids, and also I think we are living in fascinating times, because a gentleman born and grown up in Moscow is teaching us and showing us new perspectives. Sir, that's highly motivative. I thank you very, very much for that. Because I'm one of many people reading newspapers, of course. So we understand that digitalization will really change the world. But this afternoon, for the first time, I saw that with digitalization, robots and other type of to be invented machines will take care of production and manufacturing and all kind of stuff. We can spend our brains and time in more human health, earth, green related issues. And I'm convinced that the generation of Tessa, they will decide themselves if they need a boss. They will ask one of their friends to become the boss. But I think most probably they don't need bosses anymore. They simply do it together. So today I don't like to talk about structures, even not almost on concepts. I like to talk about how can we give more space to maneuver to the Tessas and the Annas of this world. They will take care. And I hope I will be there still in a couple of years to see how green and how liberal and how good they will, let's say, take care. Because a lot of jobs will go due to robotization, but on the other side, there is a huge challenge to create new jobs to take care of life. It's high time. We should have done that 50 years ago. So, what a day.
Would you allow me to ask one a bit more like critical question?
Of course.
Okay, very good. Because as we've been talking about like this big versus small, and you have this experience of working in a very big company that kind of used to be, or as far as I know, but correct me if I'm wrong, quite top-down organized. And you say like you're very happy about this, what you've heard today. Do you think that the big companies or the big structures will disappear? There will be no more Philips, no more Coca-Colas, no more, or what is their role in relation to like the kind of the softer values that we talk about here?
Well, I thank you for the question. It's very relevant. The word walvis in English. What is walvis in English?
Whale.
Whale.
Yeah, whale.
Hey, very good. Divisions, these kind of huge structures, whales, they will be changed in dolphins, groups of dolphins. A highly intelligent fish like a dolphin can swim alone, or can swim with 3 or 4 or 20, depending on the economies of scale they need to develop the power. So, and you see it already in the meantime, there are also in the Eindhoven area, VDL, I can use the name, it's a very famous, excellent company, very flat organized, with a lot of dolphins all over the place. And let's say producing cars nowadays again in this part of Holland, you need especially free swimming dolphins to get the quality and the speed and so on and so on. So that will be the future. Also, it's hope-giving that only since a few years the bigger companies are investing in small startups, because they have to discover and to learn what is all going to happen with the young generation, because they don't like
at the Brainport,
they don't like to join anymore Philips or even not VDL or even not ASML. They like to be alone with a few friends. So the big ones are taking stakes in the small ones. They will learn from it, and I think that the younger generation will find out in 5 years' time they would love again to enter Philips, because and the other big companies, because they will change, as I said, in dolphins, and because they are still Philips and VDL, they have, you know, with the flag, they can everywhere in the world, doors are open, but the way to do the job will be completely different. There we need the young dolphins for. So the big ones will disappear, reorganize, become smaller, but still important.
Okay,
sorry for the long answer.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. We have 2 more reflections to go. Yasemin, may we invite you for a short reflection on what happened in this room for the last 2 hours?
Yes. Do you have a specific question, or I can just...
A reflection is a very open question.
Yes, it's really open. Well, what strikes me is there's been a lot of talking about this. We have to do this and we have to do that, and this is what we need and this is what it will look like. And also in my own work, I see that you talked about the chasm between the institutions and what happens bottom up. And I think, just as Philippe said, there are so many people working on it, and I think it's a matter of doing. I think it's a matter of stop talking about it, because our heads are already full of it. You know, it's about experimenting and creating a kind of this comfortable place where we can do things together. And I don't say this because I don't really like it when professionals and designers and kind of this elite, because I really think we are not the total society, and I think it should be about inclusion. And if we talk about education, it shouldn't be only regarding to a specific kind of people who have a privilege to go somewhere. And I think also in design, because design is my profession, I think I have the responsibility to see how I can bridge these different worlds. And
what do you advise? Because
I advise to experiment and to bring together people, and instead of talking about what should happen, we should also see other people and not only ourselves as experts. Because as you said with the yellow shirt, I'm sorry, I forgot your name, but what I really like, for instance, about anthropologists, they really submerge themselves into a specific context they are working in. And when you go somewhere as a designer, first you're totally new into a subject, and again you need to build trust with the people you're working in. But what I learned myself is that sometimes I need to place myself as the designer, as a certain expert that has a certain knowledge, but sometimes I need to be an apprentice, I need to be a student in order to learn what the person in front of me, the citizen or the municipality worker or whomever is trying to explain to me, and then I'm kind of a mirror. So what I really kind of, it's a vague story, I know, because I think it's vague for everyone what should happen, but for me personally it's about trying out different roles as a designer and being a chameleon, and stepping outside of your comfortable area and trying out different ways of doing things.
I don't think it's not so fake, because it relates very close to what Pavel told us about societal learning in his approach. What's your comment on that?
No, I completely agree. I think we need to embrace so-called peer-to-peer models more and more. Yeah. Because in this coming world, we have all to be teachers and students at the same time. And that's one big change I didn't mention, but it's coming, is the role of co-design, teacher and learner as co-designers of their own course, of their learning path, and changing roles all the time. And I think there were some examples of how people design course together, students and teachers, and I think that's really beautiful. We have to work this way.
Yeah. So student and teacher at the same time.
Sorry, Marcel.
Yeah.
I don't think it was vague at all, but I think there's a level, a little bit higher meta level that we have to consider, because I would like to be a little bit critical about Yellow Post, that I cannot be so optimistic that this will happen by itself. We need to organize it, and I think we miss the urgency of Pavel's story if we are not taking action into that, and it won't happen from all these small individuals. Big institutions should take a lead in that, have moral obligations to do that. Yeah. I'm not the dean of this university, but I hope...
But if we think about like how Volkswagen is cheating the research of the...
exactly,
yeah, so that doesn't help in kind of the PR for big organizations.
No, but I think, of course, it's not only that. I'm not saying that we only have a top-down model. Of course, Volkswagen needs to be criticized by whatever new internet, social media, etc. It's of course, this criticism also comes from below. Yeah. But we need to have some level of organization. Otherwise, the big companies will just own the knowledge.
Yeah.
For example.
Yeah. So your point is bottom-up will not reach the top unless it's accompanied by a political action.
Yes.
Yeah. Jan Post?
But because, of course, I agree that I have a bit optimistic character, so that's partly the character. So, but I think we are talking now. We are talking serving leadership, and that means that the pyramid goes upside down. Mm-hmm. But of course, a few times a year, or sometimes even a few times a week, the top should go back to the top-down situation as far as organization, vision, policy and control is concerned. That's always a task for the leader. That will remain top-down. But let's say during the year, during the period, he or she will learn, educate, coach in such a way that the top-down story on policy will be recognized by the audience because he is listening the whole year. So I strongly believe in a serving leading role, where indeed I agree with him. The top should take action, of course, to change the structures and to change the rules of the game. That's clear.
Yeah, Tessa?
Well, I forgot to mention that in my talk, but I'm also a public servant for the city of Amsterdam at the moment. So I'm kind of undercover here as a public servant, and within the city of Amsterdam, I'm kind of undercover as a designer. And I think this tension between top-down and bottom-up is present in a lot of professions, like urban planning, like we just discussed, but it's also very present in the political structure. And what I'm working on within Amsterdam is, well, well, that's my assignment at least, is to develop a participation tool for making democracy more interactive and more direct, so that people can, instead of vote once every 4 years, have more input.
Okay.
And I think this relates very much to what you just said and your statement that we won't need bosses anymore. I think that's not true.
How does this tool work?
Sorry?
How does this tool work?
I'm actually in a research phase now.
Okay.
So what I'm trying to convince the people that I work with, I'm trying to convince them that it's not about getting ideas bottom up, it's about redesigning the interaction between bottom up and top down. And it doesn't mean that the triangle needs to be turned around or whatever. It just needs a new framework for this interaction.
It's a new type of democracy, local democracy.
Yes.
Okay.
And maybe because you had this other point you wanted to make about changing
that
bosses?
we don't need bosses anymore. I think we do need bosses. I just think their job description will be different. I think they will provide a framework for this interaction with the people below.
Yeah.
But and they will be less directing.
Okay.
This type of reaction you get when you put it a bit black-white. Thank you very much.
Okay, we have one more reflection to go, and it's an important one because we're talking about how can we upscale ideas and concepts to a broader audience, and we talked about global networks and we talked about the digital age which can help us, but there's also a very old style, but maybe a very new style type of bringing thoughts to the public, and that's the magazine. Sabine de Brake is director and initiator of the Mud magazine, which is it's published here in this region, and it has the aspiration to bring it on a higher level, but do it in English. But please share your ideas with what you've heard here in this room for the last 2 hours.
On short term, there will be no English version.
I was told, somebody told me, some optimistic person told me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
speak a bit louder.
Yeah, I will. I recognized a lot in the story from Tiny. We started also with the idea we wanted to make a magazine, a platform for artists and designers, not online, but in your hands, something that you can cherish, that you can have in your hands with beautiful images, good stories, and the DNA of Eindhoven in it. But print magazines are very expensive to make, so we needed a lot of money that we didn't have, or, well, we also have to live, so. So we had the idea, we wanted to make something beautiful. We had no money, and we had exactly what you had in your, how you call it in English? The graphics, the drawings, your sheet with the animation, yes, that's what I mean. We could have waited until we had the money to start, but we didn't. We gathered a group of people we knew that were photographers, writers, illustrators, makeup artists, hair designers, everybody in our world that we wanted to work with, and asked, okay, we have no money, we want to make this. We made boards with visuals. This is the style we want to make. Are you in? That's the only thing we asked them. Are you in? And we were very happy that a lot of people said, yes, we are in. And we started, and we gathered the money, and we had a lot of sponsors, advertisers, but also crowdfunding. We said, okay, do you want to be our friend? That will cost you. And everybody pitched in a little bit, and eventually we released the magazine last year, and we're growing and growing. We do this besides our...
What is that? Can you specify that? Growing and growing?
We get more friends, we get more sponsors, we get more advertisers, we get more readers, we get more copies. So it's growing and growing. We do this besides our other work. I'm a copywriter, my partner is a graphic designer, and yeah, we just love to make a magazine, and especially about Eindhoven. So my point in this is a lot of things have been already said about today and what should be better or worse or everything. So I'm not going into that again, but I agree on what you say. Start doing and stop talking and start doing, and then during what you're doing, you can change. You can make changes. If something goes wrong or doesn't work, well, change it and get over it and get on with what you're doing.
Okay.
So
flexible strategies.
Yes,
yeah.
and don't hold on tight to, okay, stick to the plan of what you want. Our plan was to make a fabulous magazine and wow everybody. Well, that worked, and and that's what we hold on to, and that's our plan. And for the rest,
okay.
Yeah.
Thanks. That's the do-it-yourself approach.
Yeah. So this.
Maybe that's a way better strategy to start things, because if you first look for financial aid and then start your project, then you also will have a certain responsibility towards those sponsors.
It's exactly your scheme which you presented.
So
totally
that's how you should do it.
In Dutch is it big letters here, herkenbaar.
So, recognizable.
So
okay.
4:30. Like we still have a few hours this week that we can still work and do things. So I think it's also good to finish our discussion.
Yeah, but it's not our ability, I guess, and or our what we can summarizing everything. But maybe we should have a very short, give you a very short impression of what happened, because this was a short visit to the future with Pavel, our keynote, talking about digital age, automated age, the greening, the need for greening, and other forms of societal organization. And we didn't discuss it in depth, but we saw what I call the Generation I, demonstrating that...
It's another concept, Jaap.
It's another concept?
Yeah. Are we going into another concept?
No. I just want to say that there's a great correspondence with what Pavel was talking about and what the new generation is demonstrating. They already do it, and the only important thing is how can we put it on a higher scale, and maybe that's an idea to ask Kees.
Yeah, Kees, come here.
Because he demonstrated in his career here in Eindhoven that you need other skills of working.
So, like Kees, and I continue with what Jaap said, like all these generations, like Generation I, X, and the baby boomers. You are all three of them, aren't you?
Baby boomer.
Well, I love to work with them. I get some energy from them. Not some, I get a lot of energy from them. So that's why I love to do this. And well, you see a lot of them are here. So, and we also prepared some projects. We call it 60 plus and 30 minus. Also to live together. As new communities. And that could be, well, a model to practice. Maybe start tomorrow indeed, because I like to start tomorrow.
Yeah. And then one question, and it's the last concept that we use, and that's the concept that you also introduced or helped introduce, the idea of the full moon. Can you very shortly, like in 2 sentences, say why, with all these lights here, it's a full moon now?
Well, the thing is that at this moment we had this Dutch Design Week, the 15th or the 14th, but we also have the awareness inside the ISOCAP organization to not go on another 50 years of blueprint thinking. Inside the organization you find a lot of young people that are aware of this change, but they are a bit modest. I'm also part of the revolution, 68, 69, I started a study, that was 1 month, in 1 year, everything's changed. And now it's more like a floating revolution, like an evolution. It's going very gently, but it's there for sure. And it's not only here, it's also in Russia. I went to Izhevsk for the 2nd time. We had this Urban Fest. It's a beautiful festival, held this year for the 2nd time. And I call it a Woodstock for urban design, because they also talked about this, they had this discussion inside the city. inside the city hall, but also went outside for 2 days into the field. Yeah. So to feel the nature, to get aware of the nature, to do yoga in the morning, to then dance courses in the night. So it's about having fun also.
Yeah.
So
and all these changes together, that's what you call, it's full moon and...
Yeah, so it's the awareness of everybody, everywhere in the world. So it's not only here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, well, I think we leave you, I guess, with a puzzling idea for ourselves too, and that is change is necessary. Change is going to come. We don't know what will reach a higher scale or not, like Christian told us. But anyway, the puzzling question is: there's a lot of ideas and new concepts, but how can we make them work on a higher scale? And I think that's for sure an interesting point for us and for you. But there's a registration made for this conference, so I'm pretty sure you will able to see it again and hear it again. But maybe the last word is for our keynote speaker Pavel on this whole issue. Maybe you can give your closing remark to us, and then we'll have a drink.
Yeah, just wanted to say very quickly that I think in the future we're moving to a situation where we have to more inspire each other, learn from each other, and challenge each other. And I feel inspired, I feel that I learned a lot, and I feel challenged. So thank you very much, everyone.
Yeah, sounds great. Yeah, and thank you all for participating, being part of this dialogue. Thanks, Kees, and I give you the last microphone for the last word.
Yeah, because I also want to thank you, both of you. I know you're very experienced in doing this, that it appeared to be this way again today. So I'm very happy that you took the opportunity to be here. Okay. The same for Pavel, coming from all the way from Moscow, because we didn't have so much money to talk about money, resources indeed, but you wanted to come. So I'm happy that you're here. And I also hope that you're happy too, because you were a very inspiring person for all these people here. I also want to thank you, all of you, to take part in this, because you show the colors of the city, the DNA. But I don't like the word DNA, I like the word colors, because everybody has his own influence, his own network, and you showed it a perfect way. So I want to thank you all for this. I also want to give you a small present. It's I was able to arrange this beautiful book of 3 books about Smalle Haven. I worked on this for 15 years. So it's for you. It's also a story, small story on a disc that you invented. A CD disc, I should say. Yeah, it's about the interview with, let's say, the founders of what happened here in the city. The mayor, the most important one, Rijn Welsje, but also some colleagues. You will find it. So, thank you all for being here, and I hope to see you back in half an hour at the other side of this house, the cultural city hall. That's the design house, next to this one. Thank you very much.